The old service station stood alone, a solitary figure in the vast emptiness of the night. A lonely sentinel against the vast black canvas of night, it seemed to guard secrets long forgotten. Its neon sign, a faded memory of brighter days, flickered intermittently, casting an erratic, sickly yellow glow across the cracked asphalt. The light seemed to pulse with a life of its own, a heartbeat in the darkness. The pumps stood silent, their shadows stretching long and skeletal in the artificial light. They were like sentinels, standing guard over a place that time had forgotten. A chill hung in the air, heavier than the humid night should allow. The fog wrapped around the station like a shroud, adding to the eerie atmosphere. This wasn't a place you stumbled upon, not anymore. It was a destination for those who sought it, a hidden gem for the curious and the lost. This was a relic, bypassed by the new highway years ago. Forgotten by most, it stood as a testament to a bygone era. But tonight, the flickering beacon had drawn me in, pulled me off the main road and onto the dusty path that led to its door. It was as if the station itself had called out to me, beckoning me to uncover its secrets. There was a story here, I could feel it in my bones. The air was thick with the weight of untold tales, and I knew I had to uncover them. Inside, a lone figure moved behind the counter. A man, old, weathered like the station itself. His face, etched with deep lines and shadowed by a worn Stetson, was barely visible beneath the single fluorescent light that hummed overhead. He moved with a nervous energy. His eyes darted to the door every few seconds. He wasn't expecting customers, not this late, not on a night like this. He was waiting for something else. Something he wasn't sure he wanted to see. I pushed open the heavy glass door, the bell above it clanging a discordant welcome. The old man jumped, his hand instinctively moving towards something beneath the counter. His eyes, wide and wary, settled on me. "Help you?" His voice was rough, unused. Each word seemed an effort. "Just passing through," I said, my voice echoing strangely in the stillness of the station. "Thought I'd stretch my legs, maybe get a drink." The old man just nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. I could feel the weight of his gaze, like he was sizing me up, trying to decide if I was a threat or something else, something he couldn't quite place. Outside, the fog was rolling in. Thick, milky tendrils snaked around the gas pumps, obscuring the edges of the parking lot. It was an unnatural fog. It moved too fast, too purposefully, like it was alive. I took a slow sip from my drink, my eyes scanning the dusty shelves and faded posters that lined the walls. Each one seemed to whisper of forgotten memories, of better times. But something else nagged at me, a feeling of being watched. From the corner of my eye I caught a flicker of movement in the reflection of the window behind the counter. A shape, tall and indistinct, just at the edge of the fog-shrouded darkness. My heart hammered against my ribs. I turned my head slowly, trying to appear casual, but the shape was gone. Had it ever been there at all, or was my mind playing tricks on me? The silence of the station seemed to press in on me, suffocating. A cold wind blows. The bell above the door clanged again, but no one entered. A gust of wind, unnaturally cold, swept through the station, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and ancient. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. The old man behind the counter didn't react. He just kept staring at me, his eyes filled with a strange mixture of fear and resignation. It was like he'd seen this all before, like he knew what was coming. "You ever see anything strange around here?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The old man just shook his head slowly, his gaze fixed on something behind me. I didn't dare turn around. The hum of silence. The silence stretched on, broken only by the hum of the fluorescent light overhead and the pounding of my own heart. I could feel the sweat prickling on my skin, every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind against the windows sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. The air was thick with anticipation. Something was going to happen, I could feel it in my bones, but what? The old man suddenly slammed his hand down on the counter, making me jump. "They're here!" he rasped, his voice barely audible above the wind. His eyes were wide with terror, fixed on something behind me. Something I couldn't see, something I didn't want to see. A flicker of movement. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. I could feel the blood rushing in my ears. My hand instinctively went to my pocket, where I kept my trusty switchblade. A small comfort, but a comfort nonetheless. "Who's here?" I asked, my voice betraying my fear. The old man didn't answer. He just pointed a trembling finger towards the back of the station, towards the restrooms. Their doors stood slightly ajar, darkness spilling out like ink. And that's when I saw it. A flicker of movement in the darkness, a shape formless and shifting like smoke given life. It was there one moment, gone the next, but I knew what I had seen. The old man's words echoed in my mind. "They're here." Who were they? Ghosts? Demons? Something else entirely? I had always been a skeptic, but now, face to face with the unknown, I felt a chill run down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold wind. This station, this place, it held on to something dark and ancient, something that refused to let go. And now it seemed, whatever it was had its sights set on me. My eyes fell on a dusty photograph lying forgotten on the floor. A family, smiling, happy, taken right here in this very spot, but something about their smiles felt off, forced, uneasy, like they knew something was watching them. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper. The night seemed to stretch on endlessly, as if time itself had slowed to a crawl. The smell of damp earth intensified, choking the air. It was a scent that clung to everything, seeping into my clothes and skin. The fluorescent light overhead flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls. Each flicker seemed to bring the shadows to life, making them twist and writhe in a macabre dance. I felt a presence behind me, cold and malevolent. It was as if the darkness itself had taken form, watching my every move with unseen eyes. I knew I should run, get out while I still could, but my legs felt like lead, refusing to obey my desperate commands. But something held me rooted to the spot. Curiosity? Fear? Or something else entirely? My mind raced, trying to make sense of the overwhelming dread that gripped me. Slowly I turned to face my pursuer. Each movement felt agonizingly slow, as if I were moving through molasses. My hand tightened around the switchblade in my pocket. The cold metal was a small comfort, a reminder that I wasn't entirely defenseless. It wouldn't do much good, I knew that, but it was all I had. A fragile shield against the encroaching darkness. The shadows seemed to coalesce, taking on a form. They moved with a purpose, as if driven by some unseen force. A tall, skeletal figure draped in what looked like tattered rags. It stood there, an embodiment of every nightmare I'd ever had. Its face, if you could call it that, was obscured by darkness, a void where features should have been, adding to its terrifying presence. But two pinpoints of light, cold and malevolent, burned through the gloom. They were eyes, or something like eyes, filled with an ancient, unyielding malice. Time seemed to stand still. The world narrowed down to the space between me and the creature. I could feel its gaze on me, cold and calculating. It was studying me, weighing me up, deciding my fate. "What do you want?" My voice came out a dry croak, barely audible above the howling wind. The creature didn't answer. It just kept staring at me, its silence more terrifying than any scream. Then, with a speed that defied logic, it lunged. I threw myself to the side, the creature's claws passing through the space where I had been a moment before. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding in my chest. I had to get out of there. Now. I didn't wait to see what happened next. The air was thick with tension, and every instinct screamed at me to flee. I didn't dare. I turned and ran, my lungs burning, my legs screaming for respite. The fog wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket, making every step feel like a struggle against an unseen force. But I didn't slow down, not until I was back in my car, the engine roaring to life, the headlights cutting through the fog. The car felt like a fragile sanctuary, a thin barrier between me and whatever lurked in the darkness. As I sped away, I could have sworn I saw a figure standing in the middle of the road, silhouetted against the flickering neon sign of the service station. It was a fleeting glimpse, but it sent a chill down my spine. But when I looked back a second later, it was gone. The road was empty, as if the figure had never been there. My mind raced with questions, but I dared not stop to find answers. The old service station stood alone once more, its eerie presence a stark reminder of the night's events. A lonely sentinel against the vast, black canvas of night. Its windows were dark, and the silence around it was almost deafening, but I knew the truth. It was not alone. The shadows seemed to move, to breathe, as if something was hiding just out of sight. Something lingered there. Something dark and hungry. The air was thick with an unspoken menace, a feeling that something was watching, waiting, and it was waiting. The night, as they say, is long, and full of terrors. Every shadow seemed to hold a secret, every rustle of leaves a whisper of dread. The night remains, and with it, the unknown.